Hey guys, Brox here. Just bringing you a quick Grey Zone Warfare video to talk about the point 3 update. And after giving it some thought about how I don't think the PvP update is going to make the game better or bring back the player base they think it's going to bring back, and I think it's going to send the wrong message in the end to the team as well that PvP isn't the right direction. But it's more that I think it's going to fail because the direction is just bad. The game direction for how to go about the PvP update just is going to be bad. It's not going to work and it's going to fail. And it's pretty obvious that it's going to fail after I gave it more in depth looking. The initial response, obviously, from everybody, especially PvPers, is that the game is going to get an objective, something to actually have a tug of war, a pull, from each of the factions, having something to actually achieve against each other rather than just these giant POIs. And the only thing that's really valuable to be tug of warring over is the occasional loot that pops up in crates every 30 minutes. But with this new system, what became extremely apparent when I came back to Grey Zone Warfare. So I came back to Grey Zone Warfare probably, I don't know, maybe a month ago when all the stuff was going down with them lying and the permaban stuff, which if you don't know about that, please go watch the other videos. Madfinger Games is just a terrible developer. But what came about from this was I looked closer at the images, the marketing images that they had come and put out in regards to how the cop system was going to work and how the dynamic questing system was going to work. And one thing that stood out to me was that the direction is going to fail because nothing is getting rebalanced. So one of the biggest things that was clear was I sat down and I actually counted all the cops. So there's 38 cops that was on the map that they showed, and out of the 38 cops on the map, literally 8 of them matter. The other 30 really have no bearing on anything. They're just going to be kind of dead weight for PvPers and endgame combat systems. But the big thing that hasn't changed, at least from the marketing images, is that Tiger Bay is still Tiger Bay, Fort Nerith is still Fort Nerith, YBL is still YBL, and these locations haven't moved. So they're in the same spots on the marketing map with the cops kind of sporadically laid out around them. And what this essentially means, if you haven't ever PvP'd on Grey Zone Warfare before, is that Mithras is going to just have a dominant advantage over both of these zones and the cops around these zones. But there also means that the only cops that are going to matter are the 3 cops in the marketing images around Tiger Bay, and I think it was 5. They had 2 up here, 1 here, 1 here. Lois, which is going to be the most contested cop, and then there's 2 more that are right next to Lois in like this little weird triangle, almost like Delta 1 to Lima 1, and then like Mike 3. There's like a little triangle of cops just like these 3 LZs are. And what essentially that means is that this side of the map, like if you were to cut a line, like this literal line right here, if you cut this line across the map, nothing up here matters. None of the cops up here are going to matter. The only PvP cops that are going to matter are going to be below this line, and it's only going to be the 3 around Tiger Bay and the 5 around Fort Nerith. And of those 5 around Fort Nerith, the 2 that are to the north side of Fort Nerith are just going to be owned by Crimson, unless there's like a dominant, number of people playing on Mithras versus the other 2 factions. Will most likely be owned by Crimson just because of their flight time to get back to those cops and control them. But the only 3 outside of Tiger Bay will have some contesting for whatever faction is trying to, farm Tiger Bay at any specific period of time. Those 3 are more spread out. There's like 1 here, 1 here, and 1 down here, kind of like Juliet 3. Juliet 4, I think, is up here, and then like Bam Pause. They're pretty spread out. So Mithras may own the south one, Crimson may own the north one, Lamang may own like the northeast one, and all 3 of them will have just like a triangular, control over the Tiger Bay zone unless they want to fight over, and Tiger Bay itself will probably become just kind of like a slight war zone if there's ever PvP there. But what it will actually settle down into, because there's no thought process put into this at all, is the three that are here, or I'm sorry, like these three that are here, the Lima 1, Delta 1, and Mike 3 locations, which is like Lois, something else, and something else, are going to be where all the PvP happens. Like 100% of it. Because they are the three most collapsed onto each other cops in the entire map. They're within like 100 meters of each other, all three of them. So in a triangular shape, they're all about 100 meters from each other. And they control two of the biggest areas in the entire game, which is Fort Nerith and YBL. And Mithras is just going to have an absolute dominance over those three cops, because it's going to take Crimson coming from the northern Fort Nerith cops to come down and fight, and Lamang is just they don't exist. I mean, in point 3 they might as well not even be a thing, because for them to get down here and be a contestant in the battle for these three locations is going to be a ridiculous trip for them, because they're not going to own, like, the closest thing they'll probably own is the northeast Tiger Bay zone, and potentially the north Tiger Bay cop. But outside of that, for them to walk over here would be a ridiculous period of time. To call a helicopter over, they'd have to go to like Juliet 4 and fly into like Mike 1, and then they're gonna have to run down if they want to be even remotely in the talking point for contesting for PvP. Largely it's just going to be Crimson coming down from the north of Fort Nerith, and then Mithras just, you know, owning everything in this entire area, in truth. So it just sounds bad. It sounds like no one at Madfinger Games actually thought about balance. One, because this map is just completely imbalanced. I've talked about this before. Tiger Bay needs to be like, you know, 1,000 meters north. In Bampa could switch with it. Like Bampa could be down here, Tiger Bay could be up here, so it's more in Lamang control. Fort Nerith should probably be just a little bit more away, so, you know, probably over in this area, just to be a little further away from Mithras and a little closer to Crimson. And then Midnight Sapphire is fine, you know, that's just for anybody that's going to go up there and PvE or be at the very end of their tasks. It's not really a hot spot for PvP. It's too congested with AI, and it's too open and a mess to kind of PvP in. Fort Nerith is obviously still just going to be the spot. But the problem is none of that balancing is actually happening, and what makes it even worse is Fort Nerith is getting the three most congested cops next to it as well. So all the PvP is going to boil down to is just back and forth tug of warring for three spots on the entire map. And depending on how that goes, it's just going to be boring. It's going to be Mithras loading in, you know, if they lose the three or whatever, they're just going to be loading in to just come, you know, take 5 steps up to where the cop is to take it right back over. And for everybody else, it's, you know, for Lamang, it's going to be like 10,000 miles of walking to get back to. And for Crimson, they have to cross the full length of Fort Nerith to get back to contested again. So clearly no one at Madfinger Games has the design direction to actually think about balance, think about map balance, think about cop balance, because these three cops wouldn't exist in this close quarters if they did. And the other problem is cop PvP sounds like it's just going to be like Conquest Battlefield, which it doesn't sound all that entertaining. It's not emergent gameplay. It's really just like a fake King of the Hill kind of setup, where the PvP isn't happening organically anymore. There's no uniqueness to it. There's no structure to it. There's no... The whole concept of, you know, this entire map being like a living world doesn't matter anymore, because the only thing that's going to matter is what's in between that triangle of cops, which is nothing. There's really nothing here but a couple farms and a couple, you know, wood areas that you're going to have a war zone in between. And then Fort Nerith to the north, but most people aren't even going to go go in Fort Nerith anymore because they're not going to want to deal with the AI. All the combat's going to happen in this triangle within these woods and within these farms, and that's it. It's going to become like a no man's land kind of area for combat, and it's again, it's not interesting. It's not emergent. There's no narrative that's being developed. There's no structure. There's no cool factors to it. It's just load up your kit, go fight in Bermuda's Triangle, load up your kit, go fight down there. Lemang, just forget it. You might as well not even exist anymore. It's just kind of a joke, and it shows that the design of the game is just like no one in Madfinger seems to have an idea of what to do with this game. And I've talked about this before. The direction that they keep going doesn't make sense, and it's not interesting. And it's like they're lost. They have this thing, but they don't know what to do with this thing. They don't know how to make it interesting. And yeah, what's likely going to happen is they're probably going to throw some marketing dollars at a couple streamers. Point 3 is going to come out. They're going to do a big PvP content creator push. Content creators are going to play it for maybe a couple days. The numbers are going to jump up to probably like 20,000 concurrent players on SteamDB, and then once the content creators stop and they go back to playing something else, maybe like Arc Raiders drops early in like May after their tech test, if it goes smoothly, then no one is going to play this anymore. Like the content creators are going to get money to go play something else, especially another extraction shooter, especially Arc Raiders with how good Arc Raiders is looking, which looks like it has an immense amount of direction and love and passion put into it, where this game just feels like it has none of that. And what I foresee happening is there's going to be this big pop, and they're going to be like, oh my god, the game is saved, look at it. And then within less than 3 weeks, because of how boring it's going to be to fight over just 3 cops on the entire map, the numbers are going to fall off, and you'll see them probably drop by over 50% in the first probably 2 weeks, and then by the end of the month it'll probably drop back down to about 5,000 concurrent, and then by the end of the second month we'll be back to where we are today, which is around 2,500 concurrent players. And the message it's going to send to Madfinger Games is that PvP isn't the right direction, which then they'll have 2 problems, which is PvE wasn't bringing in any content creators because there's no the PvP or the PvE in this game is irrelevant anyway. There's no story, there's no cinematics, there's no characters, there's no nothing. And then if they don't have a direction for PvE, then the game is dead from a PvE standpoint. And then they're going to look at the PvP numbers and they're just going to fall off a cliff within 3 weeks. They're going to look at the game and they're going to be like, what are we doing? And then to my point, as I've said before, they're just going to shut this down early because they're throwing money away. It's really just a tech demo now for the company that makes the actual landscaping and designs. And the reality of this situation is if they can't prove that PvP is actually going to bring in the numbers with the direction that they've put together, the game is most certainly going to fail. They're not going to be able to justify the spend anymore for development. And my point is PvP is going to fail because the direction of the game is bad. Like the balance here is atrocious. Mithras owns way too much control on the most high valued areas of the map. The cops that they showed in the marketing images, especially the triangle down here in the south, are not balanced at all. If you look at the other cops all around the map, there's 2,000 meters between them. You know, in any direction, they're all spread out in some obscure places that no one's ever gone to. I think there's like a cop up here or something. Like, who's ever going to go up here and actually care to control this? Like, what are they controlling? And then you look at the triangle cops that are down here at the 2 biggest areas in the entire game are going to have the 3 most congested cops that are less than 100 meters from each other. You just kill the entire point of the rest of the map. Like the entire other sections of this map just don't matter. They don't exist. And Lemang doesn't exist because the balance is terrible. Mythos and Crimson are just going to be fighting the entire time over this section. And anybody who doesn't want to deal with just the PvP combat being who controls these 3 cops is just going to play the PvE only mode, which, as we know, isn't enough players to justify the development of the game. So point threes, and on top of that, they're bringing in the weather system, which is going to kill optimization for like 90% of the 2,500 people that actually play this game. They're going to kill their own player base. So it's like they're intentionally killing the game just by really stupid, really terrible direction and just a lack of understanding of how to balance a game and make it interesting. These LZs should have been gone forever ago. Like they're terrible, they're garbage. They need a better travel system, either by car or by bike. They need a better system for PvP combat or a reason to PvP in certain areas rather than, just doing these events where it's like, who can take over Fort Nerith? It's like, who cares? And the sad part is that's all this game has is who can take over Fort Nerith. Because Fort Nerith is the only non-wooded zone in the entire game where you actually can have sight lines and sniping angles and range, and you could be from the outside shooting in, you can be inside doing close quarters. It's the only structured area in the map where the woods of this map, which I've talked about before, don't ruin the actual combat encounter outside of being inside YBL, which has no trees, obviously, because you're underground. And it's just like, if you understand that the benefit of your game is more designed like Fort Nerith or underground like YBL, then why not change the game to be more like Fort Nerith and more like YBL and less like the rest of this island? It's not interesting. Like if you look at like this line here, this whole section of this world, right? So 15 to 14, and you took a slice, this whole area is just dead. Sawmill's not interesting, and the rest of it, there's nothing here. So a good, maybe 33% of the map is just a dead zone. And then if you actually factor in like the surrounding area that like comes down here, if you're painting a picture, all this is dead zone. There's nothing here, so you could actually like come here, come all the way down here, come back up here. A good maybe 45% of this map is just unusable white space that no one wants to fight in, no one wants to be in, no one wants to be in the woods fighting each other. There's no reason to even go in this area at all. The end game, so anybody past like level 17, they're just going to Tiger Bay, Fort Nerith, or Midnight Sapphire, which means that Bampaw is useless, Sawmill is useless, Falling Airfield is useless. There's no interesting loot at any of these places. The only interesting loot is within Tiger Bay, the bunker at Fort Nerith, and Midnight Sapphire. All the other loot in this entire game is just trash loot. So Blue Lagoon has trash, Falling Airfield has trash. There's nothing interesting there. Sawmill has nothing interesting there. There's literally no place outside of the three main end game areas that has any interesting loot that's worth like actually going there to actually try to achieve or get keys for. And you don't even need a key for Fort Nerith. The bunker in Fort Nerith, you just walk over and you can open the door. There's not even a key for it, which is like, what are we doing? Again, somebody at Madfinger needs to sit down and be like, hey, we actually need to put some thought into the direction of this game because it's just horrendous. And I don't think Point 3 is going to do well. I think people are going to be excited. They're going to say, oh, Gray Zone's back, and they're going to see 20,000 concurrent players because they're paying marketing dollars to get those 20,000 concurrents. But I guarantee you by the end of the second month, especially if something like Arc Raiders drops in between, you're going to see the number fall off a cliff. Probably within the first 2 weeks, it's going to be cut by 50%. And then by the third or fourth week, it's going to be cut by 75%. We're going to be right back down to 5,000 concurrents or less. And that's just because it's not interesting. There's no overarching goal that we're working to. We kill a couple people, they log off. Then it gets boring. People on Mithras log off. And then no one's doing anything after that point. PvP lasts for maybe 2 hours a day. And then, it's just a desolate dead zone. Like, there's nothing going on here right now. If I went anywhere on this map, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on here, 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 here. Look, there's nothing. So it's like, Oh, and then what's funny to me, too, is if you look at Mithras and you want to see imbalance, at any point in Mithras, literally any point of the day in Mithras in the US, someone on Mithras is doing the starter town. They're doing the base level tasks. I have gone to KV and PL multiple times over the last week. I would say probably 4 times each, and not a single time I've went has there been anyone in Crimson or Lemang doing the starting quests. Nobody. Not a single person. And I went through the entire town. I cleaned out the town 4 times each. I'll even prove it to you. Look, I have their keys that, from going over to their towns. Not a single person's been over there. Not one. Not anybody leveling or anything. It's literally just one faction dominance, which is, again, going to be why Mithras is just going to own this cop section. And it's not going to be fun for anybody else. And anybody who rolls Lemang is going to quit. Anyone that rolls Crimson is going to quit. And again, there's just no proper direction for this game. It's just bad. And I wish someone at Madfinger would step up and just come up with better ideas. Because if you look at something like Arc Raiders that's just come out, just look at the direction and thought that goes into everything that game is doing, from how the AI moves around the entire map, how it hunts you, how it's looking, to keep players on their toes, make it interesting. It's not AI that are hard-coded to spawn in the exact same spot every day. They stand still, they're like stuck to an exact spot, or they walk the same exact path, and they do the same, do all day, every day. Where in Arc Raiders, the AI is actually hunting and searching and looking, and you get the loud sounds. And if you're like, oh, it's just a limitation on Unreal Engine 5, Arc Raiders is on Unreal Engine 5. It's optimized better than this game. Its art direction is better than this game. Its design and thought process is better than this game. And it's just a question of like, why can someone not come up with something better than this, or at least take the design direction to balance this better? If you guys gloat so much about your map creation tool that is being used for Gray Zone Warfare, there's like a whole company that touts their ability to make dynamic maps instantly, then move Tiger Bay and put it up here closer and get it further away from Mithras so that it's more balanced for Lemang to actually have something to control and fight over, and move Fort Nerith further away from Mithras as well, so that Mithras doesn't just control everything perfectly. It's not that hard to tell that there's massive imbalance on the map. And the player numbers for Mithras should tell you this. I mean, look at this. Look how many people are in Mithras right now. It's nuts. I guarantee there's no one on Lemang on this entire server. Anywhere. And probably Crimson, there's probably like 4 people, and they're probably like spread out all over the map. But Mithras has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 12 people on right now? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think point 3 is going to save the game. I think there's some terrible direction. I think the design, especially if you sit down and you look at the cops map that they produced, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out that it's all going to be congested into one area, and that's just going to be a shit show. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be interesting. It's definitely not emergent gameplay, which means you're not creating, interesting moments where like you're going through a tunnel system, and all of a sudden another player comes down a sword drain, and now you're in there with another guy, and you guys are hunting each other, trying to hide from each other, or you're going into a high secure building and you're moving up the floors, but then all of a sudden you hear someone jump on the roof or land on the roof, and then now you have to think about dynamically, how do we do this, or creating those moments. Like again, if you look at Arc Raiders, look at the moments in the content creator footage that's just come out today, and look at the moments people are having where they're like going through like a dark area of a building, and then all of a sudden something happens, or some guy's standing next to a door that all of a sudden starts getting breached, or 2 dudes run into the same extraction point, and they have to try to figure out if they want to fight each other or leave together. In Gray Zone, none of that exists. It just doesn't exist. It's basically going to become team deathmatch on those 3 cops. That's what it's going to boil down to. Nothing's going to be story driven, nothing's going to be player driven, nothing's going to be interesting driven. There's going to be no PvE that matters at all between those 3 cops, and the emergent gameplay is just going to be trash. And that comes down to I think his name's Mara. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing, or she, or whoever it is. They're just clueless on how to make a game out of this world that they've built. And it sucks to see, but it's the reality of the situation. Is it's just going to be bad. And I guarantee if you come back to this video, it's going to prove it, that it's going to just be a cluster in this triangle, and that's going to be the only interesting thing about point 3, and then everything else is just going to be terribly bad. And if they don't get the cheating thing under control, it's just going to be a disaster. People will meme on it. People will just meme on Grey Zone even more than it already is. It sucks to see the game go this way, but I don't have any hope for point 3. Just looking at the content that they've put out, it just shows that no one there knows what they're doing. No one considers balance. I don't think anyone there's ever PvP'd in a PvP game before. You know, it just doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that there's going to be massive problems with the marketing materials that they published. Alright, that's all I got to say. I'm out.